Welcome to a CNY Wrestling podcast. This is part 2 of the 2016 to 2017 Class B previews.
Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of the 2016-2017 Section 3 Class B previews. We are officially into the Division 2 side of the Section 3 class previews. Last video was part 1 of the Class B previews, and in that video we discussed Camden, Central Valley, Chittenango, and Cortland. There was lots of talent discussed within those 4 teams, but there is also lots of talent in the next 4 teams that we will discuss today, which are Holland Patent, Homer, Marcellus, and Mexico. I don't want to waste any time, so let's go ahead and get started with the Golden Knights. Holland Patent is the type of team to have their highest postseason tournament finish at the New York State tournament. Now, what that means is that despite not always hosting the biggest or most experienced roster, Holland Patent typically has a stud or two to gain them big tournament points. I mean, last season they actually had 3 of those type of wrestlers. They returned 2 of them this year. First up is back-to-back New York State Division II champion Hunter Richard. Richard's only losses last season came at the Eastern States Classic, and to my knowledge, he gave up 0 points to opponents throughout his Section 3 and New York State tournament runs. So the last 7 or 8 matches of his run in the Section 3 tournament and then the New York State tournament, I don't believe he gave up any points to anyone that he faced, which is just out of this world impressive, as is the fact that Richard still has 1 more year left to join his former teammate Alex Herringshaw in becoming a 3-time New York State champion. Joining Richard is TJ Philpotts, who was a transfer from Herkimer after that wrestling program folded. Philpotts seemed to fit right in with the purple and gold last year. That's evident by his 4th straight season with 30 or more wins and his exciting run to 5th at the New York State tournament. He was a runner-up in Section 3. TJ is going to be a junior this year. I think he should be a preseason favorite to stand on the top step of the podium for Section 3 and maybe even New York State. I think he and Richard are 2 of the best pound-for-pound wrestlers within Class B and Section 3 Division 2. So they're going to lead Holland Patent, I think, but 2 other names to keep an eye on from the team are Nick Herringshaw and Austin Benoit. Herringshaw was looking very impressive in his freshman season last year before going down with an injury late in January, so I believe he missed the postseason because of that. And Benoit is a former class champion. He got bit by the injury bug as early as mid-December. He barely had any matches in for 2015 to 16 before getting hurt. So both guys should be prepping for a comeback this year. And for Benoit, he's right around the 100 career win mark for according to CNY. So this is going to be his last shot on a high school mat because he is a senior, so he'll be looking to make the most of it. With that, I have Holland Patent ranking in 7th in my projected Class B team rankings. Richard and Philpotts are going to earn them big points. Benoit, I think, is going to, if he can stay healthy, he's going to be underrated because he missed last year, but he was very talented when he was a sophomore. And years before that, Herringshaw was looking very good last year before he went down and got hurt. He had some very nice regular season wins. So while Holland Patent doesn't have the deepest roster, I think these guys can carry them to a solid ranking in Class B with 7th. That takes us to the Homer Trojans. For all intents and purposes, it appears that Homer has really been gutted as a roster with a loss of 4 very talented seniors from last year. But the Trojans have been through a lot the last couple of years. They've lost some very talented guys, and they've shown they can still definitely bounce back with the returners and newcomers that they do have. One wrestler who I look to lead the way is Noah Thomas, who is a junior that racked up 24 wins as a sophomore, and he finished December with a 15-6 record, so he got out to a hot start in his sophomore year. What really surprised me about Thomas was his showing at the Class B tournament. He wrestled in a tough 120-pound bracket, and he nearly scored an upset pinfall over who was the eventual 6th-place finisher in the section. Nearly beat that guy who was Parker Talbot of VVS. They had a great match at the Class B tournament. Showed some very it was very competitive with him, and Talbot was very successful. He went on to place at the class and sectional tournament. So for Thomas almost to beat him shows how impressive he was, because that match showed me the potential Thomas has. So I expect him to have grown on that for this upcoming season. Paul Morse, who's another junior, and Reno Gaffney are two other guys that can make some noise in Class B. Morse already did so with a fifth at 160 pounds last year after he had to beat his teammate twice throughout the tournament actually to get there. And then Gaffney, to his credit, had his best season to date with 10 out of his 11 wrestled victories coming via pinfall. The lone victory that did not come via pinfall was a 5-0 decision over who ended up being the Class B champion at his weight class. So Gaffney really was among the best 285-pounders in Class B last season. So you can look for him to be back in that category this year. I think to sum it up, when I look at the Homer roster, I see a lot of young wrestlers, like I've mentioned, and also including junior Nick Rice, who was 5th in Class B and beat a wrestler who earned a sectional wild card at that tournament. I think they have some young wrestlers that could really figure out the sport with more time, and I think this season will be their first step in that direction, and while the immediate results may not show it, Homer could be improving in the near future. I have them coming in 11th in my preseason Class B rankings, which is a spot lower than they were last year. They don't have any sectional tournament wrestlers returning this year, so they're going to kind of have to start over. But I think Thomas and Morris could very well be those guys to lead the way for them. I think Gaffney and Rice could fill in as underrated lightweights and heavyweights, and so I think Homer could build on this season for the future. We'll now move on to the Marcellus Mustangs. Marcellus had a fantastic regular season last winter. They won 89% of their dual meets, and they took home tournament championships at the Moravia Duels Tournament, the Port Byron Midwinter Tournament, the Dan Wickham Classic, and the Liberty Patriot League Tournament. So they were dominant in the regular season, but unfortunately, in the grand scheme of things, they didn't have quite the success in February to show for it. At the end of the year, and you look back on it, the Mustangs, they dropped a match to their rival Skinny Atlas, 39-36 at the very beginning of the year, which technically cost them the Liberty League Championship. And then they didn't quite have the success they were hoping for at the Section 3 tournament. But that's not necessarily their fault, because Marcellus brings a lot of talent to the table, and they really just got caught up in some tough brackets last year. Two of those guys that fell victim to the tough brackets were seniors Alex Zerniak and Riley Donovan. Both guys reached the quarterfinals, Zerniak at 113 and Donovan at 120, but then they dropped two tough matches to knock them out of the tournament, with Zerniak's second loss actually coming to the eventual third-place finisher, to which he only lost 4-3. So he was right there in terms of the best 113-pound wrestlers in Section 3, and Donovan was a exceptional 120-pounder throughout the whole season. I mean, both men managed to win over 30 matches and place top 4 in the Class B tournament, and I really think these two guys will be very dangerous at whatever weight they go for this is going to be their senior year. They'll be going for their first Section 3 place finishes, but they actually have a teammate who has already earned a Section 3 place finish, fellow senior Sam Rice, who is a 4-time Class B placer and took 5th in the section as a freshman. So Rice has lots of experience. He started on varsity in junior high and has proven to be a tough out in any tournament. So I expect him to be joining Zerniak and Donovan and leading this Marcellus team to great heights this season. And I think Nick DiStefano, who was 6th in Class B, had over 25 wins. Corey Garvey is another guy, 4th in Class B. Kern Linder had over 20 wins, was 5th in Class B, and Nathan Lukens, he was a Liberty Patriot League champion, are also notable guys in the Marcellus lineup, and they all are talented, and they all actually share something in common with Zerniak, Donovan, and Rice. They're all seniors. So this season is really going to be the season for Marcellus to lay it all on the table, because all the guys that I've mentioned are seniors, and so this is going to be their last year to be successful for Marcellus. So you know that they're going to bring it, and I think that this Marcellus team could be an X factor in Class B. And I have them actually finishing top 5, which they did not get last year. I have them bumping up a couple spots because I think Zerniak, Donovan, and Rice are going to be possibly contenders for the Class B finals. And then, like the other guys I mentioned, DeStefano, Garvey, Linder, they're all former class placers, so they could be looking to do that again. Lukens was a league champion, so he could be looking to transfer that to some class tournament success. So things are looking good for Marcellus. I think that they're going to do well this year. Our final team for this preview is the Mexico Tigers. This is an interesting case because Mexico has been a Section 3 D2 powerhouse for many years now. And just in the start of this decade alone, they have been arguably the best team on this side of the section. Because in the last couple of years, the Tigers have been second, first, and fifth at the sectional tournament, and they also went second, first, and sixth at the New York State tournament in those years. So this has been a team that's made big noise outside of Section 3 as well as inside of Section 3. Unfortunately, none of the wrestlers that have helped to make that noise return to the roster this year. Mexico has no returning state tournament wrestlers for the first time since 2012 and only the second time since 1998, which is a crazy statistic. They still do return some exceptional talent, though, just not state tournament wrestlers. It starts down low and then goes up top with Dean Shambo, who's a lightweight, and Brandon Gracie, who's a heavyweight. Shambo is just a freshman, but he took 6th in Class B as a 7th grader and then had an awesome season a year ago as an 8th grader. He had 5 regular season individual tournament place finishes, made it to the finals of the Class B tournament at 99 pounds, and then went on to place 4th in the section at 99. Gracie was a Class B champion at 195 pounds, and he paced the Mexico heavyweights with a 5th in Section 3, and he had 43 total victories on the season. And what I found impressive about Shambo and Gracie is the increase of their season wins from 2015 to 2016. Shambo went from having 16 wins as a 7th grader to 38 as an 8th grader. And then Gracie, he went from 18 from 2015 to 43 for last year. So he increased his win total by he more than doubled it. He increased it by 25. So if it can improve season by season like that, just imagine how good they're going to be this year and this time around. To wrap it up, a pair of underrated lightweights should also help Mexico remain successful this winter. I'm talking about Jared Gates and Austin Reed, who both got over 20 wins for the first time in their careers last year and placed at the Class B tournament. A week after that, Gates continued his success by winning his first match at sectionals, but he came up one match short of placing at 106. And so those guys could be some guys to look out for, as well as Shambo and Gracie, who I think are exceptional pound-for-pound wrestlers within Class B. And then, just to wrap it up, let's not forget that this is Mexico, and they have been incredible for about 2 decades now in Section 3 Division 2 in Class B in New York State. And so I have a feeling that they're gonna bring some talent. They're gonna find some talent throughout their roster that's going to just make their team better. Like Gates and Reed, they weren't really on too many people's radar heading into last year, but Gates was 4th in Class B, Reed was 5th. And so they really turned it up last year when they were given some opportunities. So I think Mexico's going to have some other guys that are going to do that. But still, I'm going to have them dropping a little bit in Class B. I'm going to have them 8th. And that's just because their roster has taken a big hit the last couple of years. They've lost some just incredible talent. And they still have some very good wrestlers this year, like I've been talking about. But I'm going to have them drop down just because of the losses that they've had. So that is going to wrap it up for this part of the Class B previews. This was part 2. I hope that you enjoyed part 1 as well as this part, and I hope that you are looking forward to part 3, in which we will be covering Phoenix, the combined program of South Jefferson and Sandy Creek. We will be covering Vernon Verona Sherrill, also known as VVS, and we will be covering Oneida, the last 4 teams for the Class B previews. And also, we are going to be looking at some finalized team and pound-for-pound rankings like we do at the end of every class preview. I'll be bringing in Section 3 wrestler to help me with those. Class B has just some of the best talent in Section 3, whichever way you look at it. So you're going to want to check out those pound for pound rankings because they're very interesting and they're very hard to come up with if you try to do it. As well as the team rankings because they have some of the best teams not only in Section 3, but as well as New York State. So come back to check out part 3. I hope you enjoyed this video as well. And of course, I hope to see you next time.
You heard about him last video, so check out a CNY Wrestling interview with Central Valley's Tanner Cook in the CNY Wrestling forums. A brand new interview will be revealed along with part 3 of the Class B previews.